What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of VR365. Welcome. It is Sunday. It is 11:04 a.m. Pacific time. We're starting a little bit early, but I got to tell you, this show was going to be delayed hours because we were going to do a brand new podcast, a completely new podcast with a new name, a new channel, not even VR related, had nothing to do with VR whatsoever. But what happened, they call me last minute Norsha. My last name is Norsha, and and I've had problems with things before, and they're like, last minute Norsha, always wait until the last second to try to like string something together. And that's basically what happened, folks, because I set up the YouTube channel this morning. And like, I'm going through the process, like, want to do a live stream. And then it's like, guess what? You can't do a live stream for 24 hours. So there's like a 24-hour cool off period. Do you really want to do that crazy channel? Do you really want to live stream it? Take 24 hours and think about it. So we can't do a live stream right now on this new channel. Skeeva, of course, is one of the members of the new channel. And I was like, well, Skeeva, we're kind of stuck like Chuck here, but do you want to join me on Twitch? We can bang out a VR365 episode. Might as well do that. Skeeva, how's it going? It's Sunday, man. You were going to be on a brand new show. You were hyped, and it all came crashing down.
Oh, it's all good, man. I am really excited. I'm excited to be here. I love this show. You know what I mean? And I'm very excited to start the new channel. Even though it's not VR related, I think we got a lot of really fun and cool things to talk about. A lot of things that are entertaining and weird about the world we live in and the universe we live in, and just a lot of good juicy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's going to be an interesting channel. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw up our logo, our current logo, current channel name. This is all, it's all debatable, whether or not we'll keep these and how we're going to roll with this going forward. But right now, as it stands, our channel name is Dark Frequencies. Dark frequencies, ladies and gentlemen, they're so dark. They're so scary. So when it comes to names, we came up with like 50 different names. And all of the names that we really liked, what happened, so you come up with a name, you really like the name, and then it's like, okay, now we got to go look on YouTube and see how many channels have this name. And so me and Skeeva, we were brainstorming back and forth on names, and one of the names he came up with was Question Everything. And I was like, dude, I love that. Home run. You hit a home run, man. That is the name. Question Everything. QE, Question Everything, man. And then I was like, okay, Skeeva, check it on YouTube. See how many channels there are.
Dude, I scrolled for many minutes.
Oh my God.
Just channel after channel after channel. Most of them were garbage and nothing was happening on them. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, how do you find that needle in that haystack? So it's probably just smarter to change it.
Yeah. So Question Everything was going to be one of them. And then one of the ones I came up with was Dark Matters. Which, I mean, Dark Matters, it's like a freaking super obvious thing, but I really love it. It sounds great. Like, yeah, Dark Matters. Dude, did you see the new episode of Dark Matters, bro? But there's tons of things named Dark Matters. One of them was like, dude, I had one of my suggestions was the Tin Foil Report. And there were hella channels named Tin Foil Report. Like, who would ever imagine that? Or
that's crazy.
Mothman Radio. I liked Mothman Radio, and there were a couple channels already named Mothman Radio. And so Dark Frequencies, there's only one other channel named Dark Frequencies, and they don't have a space. I think it's dark all the way, you know, Dark Frequencies like together, and there's like one video and like 2 subscribers. So I was like, well, you know, Dark Frequencies doesn't have a lot of people on there, so let's go ahead and do that. But Skeeva, I thought we could talk a minute, because we're not really prepared for a VR365 episode. We're going to do one, and we do have things to cover. There are topics to get into, but I thought we could talk really briefly about the idea behind dark frequencies. And real quick, I'll just give you guys a quick rundown of what my thought was. So originally, I thought this was just going to be an off-topic episode, like VR365 off-topic. We're talking UFOs, or whatever, like just an off-topic episode that would be on VR365. And that's how we originally started preparing for this episode. But I was putting like the different topics together, and I'm like, this is too much stuff, man. It's like each of these things could be their own episode. And then even within that, like our first episode, we ultimately decided our first episode was going to be about UFOs and aliens. And I'm doing stuff on UFOs and aliens, and I'm like, we're going to have multiple episodes on UFO and aliens. There's no way we can fit it all in a single episode. So it just dawned on me, it became obvious that this has to be its own channel. It's got to be its own thing. I don't know how frequently we'll be doing it. I was thinking at least one episode a month, maybe 2 episodes a month. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see like on availability on when people can do it. So originally I thought of Skeeva and I thought of Roots were the first people that jumped into my mind as possible co-hosts for the show. And Skeeva, why don't you tell us a little bit, like what did you think about this idea? Were you game for it right away? Did you think, I don't know, or maybe I just want to do one episode, or what were you thinking?
So I'll tell you what, man. So the reason I came up with the name Question Everything is because it's kind of a motto I live by in life. I question everything I'm taught. I question everything that I see, and so I'm really, really into all this stuff that we're planning on talking about. So I feel like I'm 1,000% in with whether we do it a month, or once a month, or once every other week or something like that. There's so many interesting topics that we can talk about, and each one of these, if we had tried to cram it all into one episode, it'd have been like a 24-hour live stream. I feel like there's just so much on each one of these topics. One episode just wouldn't have given, we wouldn't have been able to get the information out that we wanted to communicate. So I'm glad we decided to go that route and do a whole different channel. And we can kind of bang episodes out on some of these subjects. Like UFOs, super, super interesting, right? Like there's a million different people, a million different perspectives on how this whole thing works. There's just a lot of good things. Simulation theory is something I'm really, really into. I'm really looking forward to talking about. Mandela effect, and just all kinds of really, really good stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense logically, but we see all this stuff in our everyday lives all the time. So, yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say about like all these, like some people might think, oh, these guys are nut jobs. They believe in everything. These guys, the tinfoil report, we'll all have our tinfoil hats on, and this is a report. But the thing is, I will say that I've always been fascinated. The bottom line. Here's the bottom line with this whole topic. Okay, there's a really old E40 song. It's a rap, an E40 rap from back in the days. I don't know if you ever heard of the rapper E40, but he's a Vallejo rapper here in California. He was real popular back in the 90s. Still rapping, I think, but he's like 50-something years old now. But he had, in one of his raps, he had a line where he said, "Life is too boring. That's why I wakes up every morning, pervin', swervin', running all into the curbin', twisted off some of that cherry flavor bourbon." That was his line. Yeah, it was life is too boring. That's why I wakes up every morning, pervin', swervin', run all into the curb and twisted off of that cherry flavor bourbon. And I can't agree more about cherry flavor bourbon. No, I can't agree more about life being boring. Like regular life is boring. And that's really what this is about. It's like, I think the reason that we're fascinated by like UFOs and Bigfoot and Chupacabra, yeah, that's a deep cut right there, Chupacabra, right? And like Atlantis, Bermuda Triangle, like you could go, Illuminati, all these weird things that are out there, like these like Fringe. The Fringe Report, that could have been a good one. But all these different things that are out there. And, you like it because it's like, man, if any of this stuff could actually be real, then life wouldn't be so effing boring, you know? And so
For sure.
that's really what it's about. It's like it's the hope that there might be something more, there might be something fantastical, there might be some kind of magic in this world. And the thing that I'll admit is like, look, I'm not a true believer in any of this stuff. I've seen a UFO, and one time I saw a UFO and it was not very far at all. Like it was not that high up in the sky, and it was a sunny day, and it was blue skies, like straight blue as can be, and puffy clouds every once in a while, so crystal clear. And I saw a spinning silver UFO. And I can tell you guys the size. Here's a quick little bonus segment from Dark Frequencies. So this UFO that I saw was a classic silver disc. There was nothing fancy about it. It was just a silver disc, and it was spinning. I could see that it was spinning and rotating. Okay, and the size of this thing was like, it was like the size of maybe like 3 cars. Like next, like it wasn't that gigantic. It wasn't that huge. It was maybe like 35 feet across, maybe, or something, or maybe like a 35-foot diameter or something. It was not a ginormous thing, right? But it was up in the sky, and it wasn't that high either. And it was just spinning around, and that's all it was doing. It was just spin. And I was driving to work. This was a number of years ago, and I didn't have my phone with me. I didn't have any camera on me. I was driving to work, and I saw it, and I was watching it the whole way. And then I park where I work, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm looking around for like somebody at my job, like somebody's got to have a phone. Somebody can take a picture of this and zoom in on it. I couldn't find anybody. Now, iPad Carry MG says probably a drone, a 35-foot drone. Okay, like I could clearly see this was a physical object. There's no effing question about it. Now, it might have been a military thing. It might have been a very advanced military thing. In fact, where I saw this is in Rancho Cordova, California, and there is an ex-military base that is not far from there, and they still have like military planes and stuff that fly out from there. But this was over a residential neighborhood. There was no logic for this to be there, and there was nothing fantastical about it. It was just a silver thing spinning, but I could see it as clear as day. But having said that, so I've seen an actual UFO and had like a visual encounter that was like unmistakable. I'm not saying there were aliens inside it, but this is a physical thing that I saw, right? But at the same time, there's a part of me that believes the entire UFO thing is complete and utter bullshit. And I feel that way about almost every one of these topics: Illuminati, Mandela, the simulation theory. So that's why I think it's going to be an interesting discussion, because I'm not a true believer, but there's aspects of me that part of me really does believe this, but part of me says all of this is bullshit. And Skeeva, I don't know if you're like similar in that regard, where like there's a big party that believes, a big party that's skeptical. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll be interesting for us to like chew the fat on it, right?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you. So I'll never be 100% on anything, even if it's standing right in front of me. I will, like I said, I'll always question everything. And so to me, there's a lot of things with simulation theory that make more sense to me than some of the other topics. I have some interesting perspectives on aliens and UFOs, and I don't want to get too much into detail about it, right? I'll save it for next week. But I feel like it could go either way. And I feel like it kind of leans more towards the it could be true field than it might not be. Do you know what I mean? So so that's the interesting about this stuff, is nothing is provable. Nothing. You can't prove that it doesn't exist, and you can't prove that it does with any of this stuff. So it's really interesting stuff to just be able to shoot the shit and throw things back and forth and see how this stuff works, because a lot of it is really, really interesting. And I saw F. Franklin in chat mentioned the Mkultra program. I think that would be a super fun subject to also do an episode on. And for anyone that doesn't know what MKUltra is, it's an artificial intelligence thing, where people in the where famous people are supposed to be, I think, artificial intelligent androids or something
No
along
way,
that
MK
line, right?
Ultra, I believe, is like mind control. It's like a MK is I think it stands for like
Mind
mind
control.
control, yeah. And
It,
it's
it,
like
yeah,
yeah, there's some weird. I mean, dude, there's
yeah,
so many weird things out there, and so
there is.
sometimes our episodes will be like one specific subject, like UFOs and aliens, has so much juice inside it that, it's just going to be that for an episode. But then we're also going to have certain episodes where it'll be smaller, bite-sized things where we might cover a couple of different weird things all together because they don't necessarily deserve an entire episode all on their own.
Yeah, and
But
see, I see here that iPad Carrie says that every UFO case has been debunked 9 ways from Sunday. And one of the things I want to kind of get out there is that just because things have been debunked, obviously there's a lot of people out there that don't want you to know a lot of things. So there's, with anything in life. So there'll always be a team trying to make it look like that what they don't want you to know isn't real, right? There'll always be a group of people trying to push the evidence for the other perspective that this stuff is not clear as day. So I feel like just because, you read an article that something might not be true, there's an article out there that says it might be. So you just have to look at both sides of the story and just come up with your own conclusion, because I feel like everything's been debunked. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that say, that the world is flat, which I don't agree with at all. But like, there's just a lot of opinions on a lot of things. So keep an open mind.
yeah, and that's really what we want to do. We want to have an open mind. We want to take a look at these things. We don't want to be true believers and like, yeah, this is absolutely true and there's no way. We want to explore these things. But I will say, yeah, we probably are not like the hardest hardcore skeptics. Like, if we didn't have some belief in this stuff, or at least believe that it was plausible, like, we probably would not do a podcast on this, but we're doing a podcast on this because we're interested in this stuff. It fascinates us. We think it'd be fun to talk about it. So basically, that's pretty much that. So what we're talking about here is Dark Frequencies. That is our new podcast. Roots, by the way, Roots from Virtual Strangers. We want him to be on the show. I'm not sure. Like, I need to talk to Roots, actually. Like, I don't know for sure. I know he was down for that, for like doing an off-topic episode. And I believe he is down for this show, but I don't know if he'll be there for like every single episode. We might have some special guests on different episodes. We might have a revolving chair with people coming in on different episodes. And so it's going to be an interesting thing. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I was ready to do a banger of an episode today on UFOs, had lots of stuff ready. But yeah, we got to wait 24 hours before we can do a live stream. That's on me it's on all of us, honestly, for not like finalizing a name, because we kind of needed a final name. But yeah.
Names are important.
Yeah, so we'll be doing that next week. I'm not positive if it's going to be like next Sunday around 11 or something. Maybe, that might be it. We'll have to see how Roots is doing, and we'll have to figure that out. But now we have a week to figure it out. But we do have a channel. You can go ahead and subscribe to that channel now. And, we'll definitely be having episodes in the future, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and cover a little bit of some VR news and some VR things that are going on. And easily the biggest story today, the biggest story that is breaking right now as we speak is Star Wars Squadrons. It is happening, folks. Electronic Arts has made a fiscal decision. They have siphoned off $1 billion exclusively to VR games only. I mean, come on here. So this is interesting news, because Electronic Arts and VR don't really go together like peanut butter and chocolate, all right? It's a little more like water and oil. Like, Electronic Arts has been leery of virtual reality. This has been one major behemoth publisher that has not really been a fan of VR so much, although they did, of course, have the Battlefront X-Wing mission that was on PlayStation VR back in 2016. And so we just heard about this Star Wars Squadrons, and the rumor is that there is VR support for this game. Skeeva, I'll send it over to you. Did you hear about, like, what do you think about this idea, and do you believe the VR support is pretty much a done deal? Do you believe it's still kind of up in the air? What do you think?
Well, just like our other show, I want to believe, right? So I want to believe that I'm going to be able to hop into all these different Star Wars vehicles and fly around and do some battles. Sounds like so much fun to me, man. I mean, I've always been a huge Star Wars fan. You know, like you, I've seen most of the originals in the theater, and I'm really, really stoked to be able to hop in here and do this. And I feel like they were dipping their toes in the water with Battlefront, you know, and the X-Wing mission, and figuring out how they were going to get it to work. So because of that, I feel like there's some validity here on whether this is true or not. You know, I'm hoping that they do, because I mean, you know, we all know it. VR is the future, and for me, you know, no VR, no buy. So fingers crossed on this one.
Really? Wait, are you, because I'm in the minority when I always, like, I'll talk about how, like, I have no interest in PlayStation 5, like less than zero. Same thing with Xbox One X Supreme Double X. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have no interest in these things, because if there isn't any VR, like, why do I want to drop 500, 600, 7, damn near with tax and everything? I mean, goddamn, you're talking a major hit to your bank account, right? We all need graphics cards. We need a new stand. You know, there's different headsets you want to get. It's like money. There's not just unlimited supplies of money. So for me, like paying $500 for a new PlayStation or something, it's not logical unless there's serious VR around it. But lots of people are not like that. Like, half of their gaming is flat and half of their gaming is VR, but you're more like all in on VR?
So right now I am all VR, and every once in a while something will happen to bring me back into the flat world for a little bit, and I'll usually hop into virtual desktop and play a little bit, but it's so rare because you know, I'm a dad to, you know, I have a 6-year-old, and you know, and I have a wife, and I have a business, and you know how it is. Time is one of those things that is non-unlimited, and neither is money, right? So for me, if I have an hour or two to play a game, I'm not going to sit on the couch and go play a game on the screen, you know, and look out a window and play a game. I want to hop in. I want to be in the game. You know, I want to go have an experience instead of just having, you know, playing a game. So for me, I just, you know, when there is a little bit of time, it's going to VR, because that's what I love. And there just isn't that draw to flat stuff that there used to be for me. You know, I'm a video game collector in general, and I have every console, every handheld, and I have rows and rows of physical, you know, games, and it's just crazy. But this stuff is all collecting dust, because, you know, I got my Index and my Quest, and you're not going to get me on my Xbox when there's a Quest and an Index staring at me. So right now I am all VR all the time.
Yeah, and you know, it is sad. I'll tell you what, it really is sad for me, as just like a video game guy that has been a video game guy for so long, and a video game fanatic for so long, especially in the console world. Like, if I'm being really honest, I'm a console guy at heart. Like, I've always been a console guy. I've dabbled with PC here and there, but I'm really a console guy. I'm a PC user under duress is what I am. I'm a PC user because that's where the powerful experiences are right now. But like, if one of these console makers like really put it together the right way, I would gladly forget about PCs for a while and just because it's just easier, you know, you just put the game in, it works.
You're going to get your wish here soon. And I know you disagree, but I feel like Sony is going to come out with the PS2 and they're going to drop the mic and everyone's jaw is going to hit the floor. And we're all going to be like, wait a minute, what do we do with our PCs now? Because I really think Sony's going to crush it. I really do.
Yeah, and I would be absolutely cool with that. But there is a part of me, I've mentioned this before. Like when the Xbox came out in 2001, I bought an Xbox day one. I bought an Xbox 360 day one. I bought an Xbox One. I don't know why, but I did on day one. You know, and the same thing with all the PlayStation consoles. I bought them all on the first day, all 4 of them on the first day. And so this is going to be the first year, this Christmas time, or you know, when these things come out. I have no plan. I mean, I don't know if it'll change between now and then. What about this game right here? Rogue. Well, let's see. What is it called again? Let me grab the little Rogue. No, Star Wars Squadrons. Okay, it's Star Wars Squadrons. This game right here. So the rumor is that there is going to be some VR support for this game, but it could be one of these things where that little news bit is actually delayed for a future Sony press conference. You know what I mean? Like I know Star Wars Squadrons. I know we're going to get the trailer, I believe tomorrow is when this trailer is going to come out. And there's people, you can go to where the trailer is, the official trailer on YouTube, and there's hundreds of people in chat just waiting for this thing, which is like tomorrow is when this trailer is going to come out. That's how excited people are. But this could be a PlayStation 5. You know, it has VR support, but you need a PlayStation 5. This could be one of those things.
That's very possible. And, you know, I feel like I'm going to be getting a PS5 at some point, but, you know, I'm in no rush since it's not releasing with a PSVR 2. So if let's say this were to be a launch game, and it was PS5 exclusive, but with the PSVR support on the PS5, that would be hard for me. I guess if this game got really, really good reviews, I might go out and spend the money just to play this game. But man, I don't know. I feel like it'll be really nice to actually buy a console on its second wave of pricing. You know, like you, I've bought everything on day one. You know, all the PlayStations, all the Xboxes. So it's been very expensive because day one releases of this stuff that they gouge the early adopters, and it'll be really nice to actually grab a console at a little bit smaller of a price point. But I just don't see anything that's going to say I need this PS5 with the current PSVR headset. I feel like I'm going to be able to wait until the PSVR 2 is at least announced.
Can I ask you this question? So, what we're seeing on the screen right now, this is Star Wars Battlefront and Rogue One X-Wing VR mission, which really is the only official VR thing that we have that's related to Electronic Arts in any way, shape, or form. This is like the one little time they dabbled their toe in the water. Have you ever played this? Did you ever try this? Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh yeah, so I had this on day one, and you remember when Beat Saber came out, and you said you were in a headset and you shed a tear.
Yeah,
that happened to me in this. So I had never imagined in my wildest dreams that someday I was going to be able to get in an X-wing and have a battle with TIE fighters. Like this blew me away, like none other. Like especially being a huge Star Wars fan, right? I've always dreamed of stuff like this and interacting with things in the Star Wars universe, and to be in the cockpit of an X-wing was an experience I will never forget. Even though it was just a mission, and it was just a quick little dabble for them to stick their toe in the water and see, what was going on with the industry. This left a huge impression on me. And which is one of the reasons I'm excited for this new game, and hopefully it has VR support.
Yeah, the one thing about this this little X-Wing mission, right? I remember the very first time I saw it with my PlayStation VR headset on, and just the intro, with the AT-AT or whatever, just what like.
Yep.
Nobody does that great of VR intros. Like this was EA. Criterion, basically, right? Which is a subsidiary of EA. And they don't give a rat's ass about VR. They made one little tiny thing in VR, but they freaking nailed the intro. And Can you think of other intros in VR where like they really took advantage of the 3D audio and the fact, the scale in it, just to have like the intro beginning like
Only Half-Life is the only one coming into my head, right? Where you first, show up on the balcony in Half-Life Alex, and you look around and things are flying by. That was the only other intro that I can
but
think of off the
that
top of my head that really left a big impression.
but that one, like the game has already begun. I'm talking before you
Right.
even hit start on the game. Like
True.
just the like the beginning intro
Yeah.
and then you hit start. And they kind of did that with this. But also,
Yeah.
okay, so now we have the actual like game here where you're in the X-wing and you're looking at your controls, you're flying along. What's your opinion of like the old games back in the days? Everybody talks about X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and, all these
Mhm.
different games. Like people just love those games to no end. I'll be honest, like take my gamer card away because when those games came out, I never actually really played them. I heard about them
Right.
and I knew they were big deals, but I never got into them. I didn't get into any of these flying in a Star Wars vehicle games until the Rogue Squadron games started up with like the GameCube and stuff. I think it was the
Yeah.
GameCube launch had a Rogue Squadron Rogue Leader game, and I
Yep.
loved the shit out of that.
Yep, and that's exactly when I got into it. So the GameCube came out and Rogue Squadron came out, and I got that game and I was hooked on it. And then, and that's what the Battlefront thing reminded me of. It was like playing that game, but actually being in the cockpit of the X-Wing. And the other thing about what EA did was they made every button in there clickable. They might not all have done stuff, but a lot of them did do things. They brought up, targeting computers and open and close the X-wings. And they just did all kinds of really cool, neat little things. And, that added to the immersion. So this really reminded me of a VR Rogue Squadron. And that was the first time I really got into a game like that. Well, there was actually a game on the Nintendo 64. What was that one called? Star Wars.
Shadows of the
Shoot.
Empire. There was Shadows of the Empire.
Yes, that's the one. Shadows of the Empire. And that game, you got to do the first-person shooter thing where you were walking on foot, and you also got to fly around in some of the speeders on Hoth, I believe, and take out AT-ATs and stuff like that. And that was probably the very first Star Wars one. And then I hadn't played anything like that until the GameCube came out, and then Rogue Squadron. But those two games I've spent so many hours in. Really enjoyed them.
What about like non-Star Wars games though that are like flight sim style games like Elite Dangerous? Like, have you messed with those games? Are you in? Is that your bag or not really? Or
So I definitely enjoy that stuff. So the one I've probably put the most hours into is No Man's Sky. I have about 145 hours in that, and half of that is flying around in your ship, and half of it is on foot exploration and in the water and in caves and stuff. And I love it. I love it. There's something about being in the cockpit of a vehicle in VR that is so unbelievably immersive. Just looking around at your control deck and all the buttons, and being able to look out the right window and not being stuck on a head-on view, and being able to grab the joystick and manipulate it is just absolutely amazing to me. And I didn't get into Elite Dangerous, although I do own it, and I wanted to get into it. I just got scared off by how many hours people said it took to get into the game. But I do like stuff like this. Things like Ultra Wings and stuff, whatever. But, if the Microsoft Flight Simulator that has been shown off gets VR support, I'd be very much into that as well, I think.
one of the things, like I'll try these games, I'll play these games, but ultimately they leave me wanting a little bit. Like even this experience right here left me wanting because I gotta be honest, I feel like when you're in this cockpit and you're in outer space, to me it looks like basically they have like a wallpaper, like there's a
Yeah.
wallpaper that is wrapped all the way around you. Then they have a few actual 3D objects that are floating closer to you, but it's just a wallpaper. And that's a problem to me because
Hmm.
like I it's immersive, like, okay, yeah, I'm dodging this asteroid, I'm dodging that asteroid. And so when I'm dodging these asteroids, I'm obviously not looking at the wallpaper, so it makes it more immersive for me. But at other times I see the wallpaper, it's a static image. It's like that galaxy way off in the background. It's like you're
Yeah.
not getting any closer to it. And I feel like there's got to be a way to make this better where they could have multiple levels of like floating space debris that are on like multiple planes, like maybe 4 or 5 planes out. So like you got space debris on this first plane, and then another area you got some extra, and so like it would give you that sense of like I'm really out in the middle of freaking nowhere and I'm moving along,
Hmm.
and I feel like I'm moving along rather than just being, in the middle of a black void.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I am one of those guys that I've always, even with flat games, I've tried to use my imagination a little bit to enhance the immersion, right? So you can obviously tell there's something on your face. I pretend that it's a helmet, you know what I mean? I When I see things off in the distance like that, I just try to kind of focus them out a little bit, and I just try to get into the role, you know what I mean? And just have a lot of fun with it. And I feel like I know exactly what you're saying, and I feel like someone's gonna nail that, and they're gonna kind of get rid of that wallpapery look, that kind of goes around you. But I feel like these companies right now are just kind of sticking their toes in, so they're just kind of testing the waters. Also, I feel like because of the resolution of the current headsets, when you look off into the distance, it's a little bit harder to get depth than it is with things that are a little closer to you. So because things off in the distance often either don't get drawn in until you get a little closer to them, or they just look a bit pixelated because of the resolution. I think in the next gen of headsets and the next gen of VR programming, I think we're going to see a lot of this stuff as more people come in and there's more reason for these companies to put more money into making these experiences better. I think we're going to see that.
Yeah, to be a Debbie Downer again, another thing I'll say about like these like space games and pilot type games in general is like, so you mentioned No Man's Sky. And like one of the beautiful aspects of No Man's Sky is seamlessly being able to go into a planet's atmosphere and land, that kind of thing. And I feel like if they somehow had that with Star Wars as well, like imagine if you're flying along, like you're in a Millennium Falcon type thing, and there is a freaking super Star Destroyer, and it's pulling you in with its tractor beam, and you're being pulled up into this giant ship. And then maybe you have to get out and do some on foot stuff as well, but you
Get
have
me
to,
excited.
you have to escape and you get back into your X-Wing, and then you get out of there or whatever. But I mean, I know that's probably not the way this is going to go. And so it's basically
Yeah.
going to ultimately be like a flying dogfighting thing, right? And here's the
Hmm.
problem I get in with all these flying like Ace Combat, whatever it is. I've never gotten into these games because the bottom line for me is ultimately like for Ace Combat, it's just a blue background, right, with white puffy clouds every once in a while, and it's basically like you see these tiny little specks off into the distance. Okay, and you're shooting your missiles at them, and then it's like, oh, I missed them. Now they're back over there. Now I've got to turn around. Like, I just,
So Ace Combat, I like how you brought up Ace Combat 7, because I thought Ace Combat 7 was a pretty good, especially if you got past the first level. They did some really interesting things to make it a little bit more immersive. So there's this one level where your jet's being taxied out onto the runway. And while it's being taxied out, all this huge war is going on, and planes are crashing in your taxi route, and just craziness is going on everywhere. And once you get up in that level, it's also not so generic where it's just a blue sky and some ocean down below. There's actually a lot of things going on the ground, which I really liked. So you could get really close to the ground and fly by tanks and try to take out the ground support as well. I really got into Ace Combat 7. I thought they did an actually pretty good job, and how when you went through the clouds, there would be precipitation and water, on the glass of the plane. There was a lot of cool little details that they were able to put in there. Ultimately, I was bummed that they weren't able to get the whole game into VR because, I spent, I got it on day one. It was like $60 and, for 3 levels in VR, and that's all I played. I just didn't have any interest in not being in the jet to play. So I played the VR levels multiple times through, and then I put it down. One of the other things about flying games that I'm not a fan of is people will often hop in because it's one of the things they love to do is flight simulation. But then they hop in, and then flight games are very apt to make people motion sick. There's a sense of G-force that comes with flying, and moving pushing your body to each side of the cabin as you turn the plane, and same with cars, right? And I feel like anytime anyone hops into one of these that doesn't have the VR legs, it kind of ruins VR a little bit for them, and they feel like they're going to get that motion sickness no matter what, right? So this whole thing is great for us with VR legs, but at the same time, if a game like this is someone's first experience, it's not a good thing for VR in general.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's a real VR problem. Like, that is a real VR problem, because I've seen it happen numerous times. In fact, there's a buddy of mine, right? He was over here one time, we were having like a barbecue or something, and he had seen some VR on like a Gear VR, but he had never seen like real deal VR. This is a long time ago. And I put him in Doom 3 BFG, which, is a VR mod. Like, it's not even, and he had he did it for like 5 minutes, had a headache the entire day. And like, he has no interest. Like, anytime anybody brings up VR, he's like, "Oh, that stuff." And it was just one little experience, but yeah, it's poisoning the well. It does happen.
Yep. It does. Unfortunately, it does. It's too bad because Alex, the co-host of Between Realities, we were trying to get his dad into VR, and we were at CES, and he went to the Pimax booth without us there, and the Pimax people stuck him in a flight simulator with 210-degree field of view, and he got so sick. He almost had to leave the conference. And I feel like it's super important that as people that are trying to push this technology, that we really try to put people in the correct type of experiences for their first time, because really, once you poison that person one time, they just have this long-formed opinion about the technology. Like you said, the dude's just not interested anymore, and that's a shame, because if he were to get into a Beat Saber, right, where you just stand there, there's no motion sickness. Anytime you're just standing in one spot doing some actions, it's fine. Super hot, things like that. And that guy probably would have had a huge, a different opinion, and he would have had a really good time. So yeah, it's kind of an important thing, right, for all the people out there listening. When you go to show someone that hasn't played VR before something, make it something where they're in a spot standing in one place for their first thing.
I feel like, though, eventually, like, these people that have been ruined, where they tried the wrong thing and like totally like now they just think VR is just a boat fire. They just don't want nothing to do with it, right? But I do believe that eventually they will come back, because long term, what's going to happen is this is just going to continue to get better and better and better, right? Resolution's going to get higher, field of view is going to get better, the headsets are going to get more lightweight, full body tracking is going to eventually happen, and our bodies are going to be in there as well, and it's just going to get immeasurably better in every category. And what's going to happen, they're still going to be avoiding it this whole entire time that all this is going on. They're still going to completely avoid it. But what's going to happen is they're going to find out that like their cousin that like is like a soccer mom is like told, and they're going to be like, what? But but no, this doesn't compute. VR equals motion sickness. I'd be like, no, you must have tried like an early version of VR. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be like, oh, well, I guess I need. And then when they try it again and it's going to be like unbelievably good. Like VR, I'm telling you, man, I am totally convinced. Like there's some people that exist on planet Earth that believe VR is never going to happen. It's just not going to happen because you got to put something on your head. There's people that are convinced about that. I'm convinced in the
There's
opposite.
people convinced of everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm convinced in the opposite direction that this is an unstoppable force that no one will be able to resist this ultimately because it's going to get so effing good that there's just no way you're going to be able to resist. But like we might be 15 years away. We might be 20 years away.
Sure.
That's the caveat that I'll give you is, yeah, it may be 20 years away, but it's inevitable. Unless the only thing that could kill VR dead, in my opinion, is like freaking aliens land, right? And they give us some way better shit that just where you don't need the headset. And it's just like freaking incredible holograms everywhere. But other than that.
And I think that's kind of when it's really going to take off is when we get brain interfacing, right? And then there is no motion sickness and there is no problems with locomotion anymore. I think some of these things are really going to solve those problems. And the way people are looking at it now is imagine if you tried video games when they first came out and you hopped on an Atari 2600 and then for the next 20 years you said to people, this is garbage. You're just a dot and you're playing with these other dots, right? And then all of a sudden you see a PlayStation 4 and the new God of War game or something that just will blow your mind, right? That's what's going to happen to people with VR as well. They're going to, they get this little glimpse of, Gear VR or, whatever the case may be. And then, oh, VR sucks. And then,
we were having a little bit of technical. Okay.
It's like you say, man. One of my favorite quotes that you say is that VR is like it left the station. It's a runaway. You can't stop it. You try to get in front of it, but it's going to run you over. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking for a trailer for a different game, and so here's the thing, guys. I got to apologize because coming into today's show, we really thought we were going to be doing this other show, and so I didn't really bother so much with like trying to get things ready to make a good show here with like other stuff to talk about. So I apologize for that because I don't really have the trailers dialed up. But let me see if I can grab, we'll go into a new topic here and let me see what I do have that we can talk about here. Because I also don't have our webinar set up with Skeeva to be able to be on there. I could do it, but it would take a minute. Okay, why don't we talk for a minute just about Lies Beneath. This is a game. So what happened is I fired up my Oculus Quest yesterday. I haven't really been using my Oculus Quest too much recently. And I was like, you know what? I need to try that Ecosphere thing. And there's some other things I need to, there's some different Oculus Quest things I need to try that I haven't really screwed around with. And so I was like, I downloaded, started the process of downloading like the Ecosphere and like some of these other things on my Quest. And in the meanwhile, I was like, well, let me play something while I'm waiting for these different things to download. And I was like, oh yeah, Lies Beneath. I have this on the Oculus Quest. Now, the thing is, when I first tried Lies Beneath, I tried it on an Oculus Rift. And I played it a couple of times, was not feeling it at all. I was like, what are people seeing in this game that I'm not seeing in this game? Because I just didn't get it, man. It just didn't make sense to me. And then everybody was like, well, Anthony, no. Don't play this on a Rift because this really is not a Rift game. This is the definition of a Questicle. This is a Quest game through and through, and the Rift port doesn't really have any enhancements. It hasn't really been improved in any way, like resolution, like there's really no benefit to the Rift version. So go ahead, if you're going to play this, play it on the Quest. So I was like, okay, well, I've never really tried this on the Quest. Let me give this game another chance. So I was playing this game yesterday, and I've gotten up to like chapter 3 or chapter 4. So I'm still like super early in it, but I have gotten a little bit farther than I was on the Rift. Like, I barely gave the Rift 1 a chance. Played this a little bit more. I still don't get it. I still don't get it, man. Like, I don't know. First of all, like, graphically, this is not a powerhouse. You know, it's designed to have this comic book style look, and it's been watered down to have this like style, this art aesthetic to it. Comic book, very simplistic, kind of not low poly, but just kind of like cell shaded a little bit, you know, kind of simplistic, not a lot of colors and stuff. And so it's designed specifically that way. And you would think that if something is designed in that fashion on the Quest, that it would run very smoothly. Like, that would be like the benefit of it would be, well, this is not taxing the Oculus Quest, so it's going to run nice and smoothly. There's not going to be much of a herky-jerky factor going on here. But as I was playing this yesterday, I was frustrated by a number of different aspects of it. First of all, I'm moving around in the game, and I've noticed this in other VR games as well. And Skeeva, I'm going to ask you about this. Well, this is a question for you as well. Have you ever been in various VR games where you're moving with your thumbstick? You're doing like free locomotion with your thumbstick, right? And you're moving through the game, and you're moving, you know, you're pushing this thumbstick forward, and you're moving forward, or you're moving over this way or moving over that way. Everything seems to be working pretty normal. You push it, you move, it's smooth. But then sometimes you move the thumbstick and it feels like it's like stuck or something, and it's like you're moving in molasses, or it's like super slow. You're like, am I doing something wrong? Why is it not? And then it's like now it's moving fine again. And now it's like I'm stuck in molasses, and it's like, it's kind of like discombobulated. Now it's moving smooth again. It's like, what the hell is going on here? Because I'll play a game. I remember Gunheart, the PC VR version of Gunheart. That shit is smooth as hell. You're moving fast and you're moving smooth. You push that thumbstick, you are moving. There's never a time where it's like, oh, I'm stuck in molasses or quicksand, and now it's smooth, and now it's not smooth, and now it's smooth, and now it's not smooth. And I noticed that a lot when I was playing Lies Beneath. Now, I know what someone's immediately going to say, Anthony, were you walking on the ice? Because like there's like little ice ponds and shit in this game. Like there's certain areas where you might get stuck a little bit. Maybe they did that on purpose. But no, I'm not talking about that. And it almost made me look at my Oculus Touch controller and wonder, is like my controller broken or something? Like, what's the deal here? So my question, Skeeva, have you ever, like this complaint that I'm talking about, does it ring any bells with you? Or
Absolutely. There's a lot of games that have been like that for me. And but at the same time, my thought on that is kind of skewed, because I'm a day one Index owner, and I'm sure you know, if you know how, you know, the story of Index is the controllers break all the time, and I've been through 3 sets of controllers, and most of that has been because of the joystick breaking, right? Where you'll push forward, but inside the controller, it doesn't actually push forward. It pushes forward just a little tiny bit, and then you feel like you're moving really, really slow. So this is one of the issues I had with a lot of games, but it was mostly because of my Index controllers. But I do know what you're talking about, because there's a lot of first-person shooter games that I feel like for some reason I'll be walking at one speed at one time, and then the next time I go to run, it's a totally different speed, and I found it is very, very strange. I know exactly what you mean. Like you're getting stuck in molasses is a really good example of what that does feel like. But in my head, I kind of have it all mixed together because of all the terrible experiences I've had with my Valve Index controllers and the thumbsticks breaking. And I feel like most of my experiences was because of that. But I do know about that thing you're talking about.
Yeah, and there's also, of course, the running thing, where a lot of times it's like click in the thumbstick to run fast, and so many times with that, it's like on some controllers, when you click it in, you know absolutely I've clicked this in, and you know it and you feel it. with a lot of the controllers I'm using on these VR headsets, it's not really like that. It's like I push down and it's like, I guess I've got it clicked in. My guy's kind of running, and then it's like, now he's not running. And I know sometimes it's a stamina thing, and like in this game specifically, like maybe you run so far and then it's like, okay, now now he's out of breath or whatever. But maybe what they need is there needs to be like maybe it was a stamina thing. Maybe I'm moving around really fine in this game, but maybe like there's a stamina meter that I'm not seeing, but it does create this like irritation, right? That it's like,
it removes you from the immersion.
Yeah.
It definitely removes you from it, because in real life, you wouldn't just start walking slow by accident, so it sucks you right out of that experience. And I know I'm pretty sure you still have the original index controllers, right? So you cannot feel a click when you're pushing forward and you push down on the thumbstick. Now, in the newer ones, especially the third revision that I now have, the click is very prominent. You can definitely feel it, and there isn't a whole lot of question.
When did the index come out? Because I need to like do the thing with my controllers before it's been 1 year, right?
You definitely got to, because your controllers will eventually break to the point where you won't be able to use them at all. So you definitely want to make sure you go ahead and do that. And you know what really got me by on my 3 RMAs to Valve was being able to remotely connect my Quest to my PC and wirelessly stream PC VR. And I'll tell you what, ever since being forced to do that because my index was down, I now use my Quest more than I use my index, because of the wire thing, right? So obviously the hertz are only half. You only get half the frame rate. The field of view is not as big. It's just not as good of a headset. But not having the wire is such a big deal that it's almost, you can almost leave that stuff behind. Especially with things like I play a lot of Echo VR, things like that, where you're doing a lot of spinning and a lot of throwing things pretty hard. So I feel like, the Quest is just a phenomenal headset when it comes to even with things like the index out. I feel like you're going to have an amazing time playing most of these games, even though you feel like, I don't have an index and, I want to get the full experience. I still feel like you get, pretty close to the full experience in the Quest. I just kind of wanted to throw a quick Quest love out there.
What about your comfort issue though? Like,
So here's the thing, right? So I took my Quest and I put the very thick front VR cover on, and then on top of that, I put the cloth VR cover over the leather, and then I have the 17 millimeter VR cover on the back, right? And then I put it on, and I can wear it for 6 to 8 hours a day using it as a computer monitor.
Wow.
Like it might not be, it's still front heavy, but to me, most of the comfort issues have been resolved with those things. Now, unfortunately, it's like $40 for the front interface. It's like $30 for the back one. It's another $20 for the cloth cover. So, you're going to throw an extra $100 at your Quest to try to make it comfortable. Is it worth it? To me, it is, because I'm such a VR junkie, and I use my headset to work and as a computer monitor as well. But to me, those mods right there took care of all my comfort issues.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about something a little bit different here. And one thing that I did see in the news, we're kind of light on news right now. There's a number of little things that are going on, but there's not a lot of big news. One thing I did see, now this was on Twitter, the developer of Lo-Fi basically said that this game is coming to PlayStation 5. So he said Lo-Fi is coming to PlayStation 5, but did not mention anything about VR, but this is a VR game. And the thing about PlayStation 5, obviously we got the breakdown last Thursday where we got all the different trailers and stuff, but Sony has said nothing about VR. And so we did get the information that this game is coming to PlayStation 5. So he kind of like danced around probably an NDA about the VR aspect of it. But do you believe that him saying this pretty much confirms that there are going to be, because he didn't say lo-fi is coming to PSVR or PlayStation 4,
Right.
because it probably, like, there's probably a number of games that to get them working on, because you got to get it working on the vanilla PlayStation 4 as well, not just the Pro. And so, like, trying to take a game like this and trying to get it to run on the base level vanilla PlayStation 4 for PSVR 1 might be an impossibility. So we probably are going to get some exclusive, not exclusives, but games that basically require PlayStation 5, right?
Yeah, definitely. For sure. I mean, when you look at they haven't released the specs of the new PlayStation yet, but if you look at what normally happens with their generational leaps, it's going to be a significant boost in performance. And I feel like a lot of that is due towards they know, they put, I don't want to piss anyone off here, but they had a subpar VR headset that did very, very well, right? So I feel like they dipped their toes in that water, and they saw that there was enough interest that if they made a really good VR headset with a really good console, that it would probably take off really well. So I think that, one, he's not allowed to talk about the PSVR 2 because it hasn't been announced and he's under an NDA. But the other thing is that when you're looking at someone that's been cramming and coding and would like to get a kickback on all the hard work that they've done by making a game, to open up your market from 5 million people to 100 million people is a significant boost in the audience that you're in front of and the amount of people that will buy your game or could possibly buy your game. So it's possible that there's a flat port coming. It's possible, but I really feel like this is mostly because he's just not allowed to talk about the PSVR 2, and this is probably going to require it. Hopefully, at least that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. I mean, Sony's in a bit of a weird position right now, and a lot of people are wondering because it's like, hold on, I'm trying to grab a just like I don't have.
I'm watching the footage here of lo-fi, right, when they're driving around in the car, and I will tell you that one of my most the earliest experiences I have in VR when I first got my Rift was I tried a game called Air Car, and never in my life have I felt like I wanted to puke more from a VR game than that game. Now, I've gone into it since I've gotten my VR legs, and I don't really have any problems. But at the beginning, man, that game messed me up hard.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because there's smooth turning. And if you turn like this smooth in Air Car, it breaks your brain. Well, for me, it breaks my brain. Yeah.
It broke my brain.
Exactly.
It really, really did. And so there's a lot of footage in lo-fi that kind of looks very similar to Air Car. And, it makes me wonder about what we were talking about earlier. Is this something that's going to, will it come out for the PS5 and, with the PSVR 2? And is it something that's going to break other people's brains and kind of poison the well? Or will it be, or have they figured out the right comfort issues and, all the things that will allow people to enjoy the title more?
I've played some lo-fi, like some the preview builds, some of the preview builds that they've had for it, and I've been in the little Air Car. I mean, I've been in the car that you're in that,
the vehicle,
and it wasn't like Air Car.
Oh,
like
good.
I didn't get that weirdness from it.
That's great news.
Yeah,
That's great news.
I mean, that's just something developers have to learn is like make that an option that you have to turn on in the settings. Where somebody can go in and turn that ability on because, regular people are going to have problems with it. But just going back to the PlayStation thing, because it is in the news about like Astrobot and Resident Evil have been revealed, but not confirmed as having anything to do with like VR.
Well, Astrobot wasn't really revealed, right? What they revealed was Playroom. Yeah. And Playroom has been around since the PS3, I believe. Right, or was that a PS4 launch thing? So Playroom is the augmented reality thing that they're able to do with the PlayStation camera and being able to put all the little Astrobot guys all over your room, and you can interact with them and you can play with them, and at the same time, other people can also, it's kind of a multiplayer augmented reality experience. And then they took that and they put Astrobot into a full VR experience, which was great. So So I think that they are not talking anything PSVR 2 right now. I think that the whole Astro's Playroom thing is simply just another reason for someone that isn't into VR to buy a PlayStation camera. And just to kind of continue on their augmented reality, because ultimately these companies have to work on augmented reality in some way, because when this boat comes a sailing, if you're not ready, you got a lot of work to do to catch up. So I feel like Sony is continuing on with their AR development, specifically so when there's eventually a PlayStation augmented reality headset, they won't have to play a huge game of catch up.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering, so the camera, so like when I was doing my last episode, which I guess it was Thursday, the night of the Sony thing, and I had been working overtime and hadn't paid attention to anything. So like everything was last minute for me. So I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't even know if there was a price for PlayStation 5 or I knew certain things had been revealed, but I didn't know the details.
Yeah.
And, somebody was saying that the camera is included with every PlayStation 5, but since then I've heard no, that's not necessarily true, that the camera could just be another accessory like the headphones and all these other...
It always has been.
Yeah, all these other accessories. So if it is an accessory, do you believe it's going to be one of these situations where... For example, like I have a PlayStation VR right now, right? I have a PlayStation 4 camera. I have my PlayStation VR headset. I have my processor box. If I were to buy a PlayStation 5, now I know you don't know the answers to these questions, but I'm just saying, like, if you were to try to guesstimate what you think would happen here, like the processor box, do you think that might be built into PlayStation 5 in some kind of way? Or do you think people that have PSVR 1 were going to have these spaghetti wires going everywhere?
No, I think so. What I think is going to happen is I think this camera will come with the PSVR 2. I don't know if it'll come with the PS5 because it's an extra cost. And right at the beginning, Sony's going to take a hit on the hardware in order to make it somewhat affordable. So I feel like they might not want to include the camera because it'll just be another thing they're going to give away for free and they're not going to make any money on.
Okay,
so
wait. 1 second, though. The one thing about that, though, is if they were to include the camera with every single PlayStation 5, they will take a hit from the cost of including that camera and then also the lost sales of, the accessory and stuff like that, some extra money they can juice out of people. But one advantage of it is then when they do come out with PlayStation VR 2, they don't need to include a camera in that box. They'll know that everyone has a camera, and then also from the whole Twitch streamer, YouTube streamer, all of that crap. And then everybody would have a camera. So, and then also they could make, I don't know if they could have some little face sign-ins. So you just walk, you know what I mean? Like the camera's always going.
Right
okay.
Yep. They do have that right now. So when I walk into my room, if the PlayStation's asleep, it sees my face, it'll log me in. But here's the thing. So you could sell up to, let's say, 100 million PlayStation 5s over its lifetime, which means you'll need 100 million PlayStation cameras, right? You're going to sell a lot less PSVRs. It would make a lot more sense, I think, from a business standpoint to include that with the PSVR. Now, Xbox tried this with their Kinect. They forced the Kinect in with every Xbox One, and the technology still didn't take off, and they discontinued it. So I feel like they're going to look at things like that, and they're going to base some decisions on that. I think that it would be a phenomenal idea to include it because streamers really should have a way to put their face on there with their gameplay, things like that. It would be great to just have everyone be able to go into the AR solution, to the Playroom stuff and mess around with it. But I feel like people just don't use it that much. And the people that want to stream will just buy the camera. And the people that are going to use it with PSVR 2 will get it included with PSVR 2. I also don't think the camera is a tracking solution specifically for the PSVR 2. I think it is. I think it could be used as an add-on to the inside-out tracking that the PSVR 2 will have, for in case those controllers get occluded. in any way, that they'll have another eye to be able to place that in space. But I think the main reason for it is full body tracking for the PlayStation.
I would
That
love
is
that. I don't know. I don't know because it really see the whole full body tracking thing. Like I'm a big proponent of that. I think it is. I think it's like one of the next big things in VR. Like because we don't like I don't, but I don't know. I don't know if like full body tracking is going to really be this game changer. Like if I went to Facebook Reality Labs, I'm sure somebody there knows. I'm sure they've tried it because like the way I imagine it. I imagine that, and I bring this up every time, is like, when you watch a sci-fi movie, somebody goes, like Stargate, right? You go through like the liquid water stuff, you go through Stargate and it's like, whoa, like, I mean, everybody does the same thing, right? And in VR, we don't have that. And it's not only just our bodies, but also I think it would be super cool. They have this like tech now where it can almost like automatically green screen you. So like it can automatically tell what's you and what's the background. I mean, kind of half-assed, but it does it.
Yeah.
And then if they could do that with the body tracking as well, and then it's like, oh, I'm wearing this blue shirt today. It has this blue shirt in here, and I'm seeing like maybe I have a scar on my arm or a tattoo or something. So it's not just your arm that is moving accurately, but like your tattoo, your watch, rings on your fingers, or like any little things that you have, like all of that is brought into the game as well. So it really, because ultimately, don't you think it would be that much more immersive if like when you're in VR, now people will say, I don't want to be myself in VR. I'm trying to get the hell away from myself. I want to be something different. And I get all of that. But at the same time, if you want maximum immersion, wouldn't you really want to be yourself? Because, I mean, warts and all?
Kinda. So I feel like it's a necessary evil. I feel like we will eventually have to get to the point where we can bring our bodies in there. I don't think PSVR 2 is going to go to where it's going to be able to, include your tattoos and your shirt color. I mean, it might. Maybe it's just a developer thing that they'll have to include, right? But I feel like what they're going to try to do here is to accurately depict your skeletal system and the movements of your body. And that way, even if you don't want your body in VR, you still need that tracking if you want to be someone else, right? It still needs to know where your elbow is, still needs to know where your knee is, and how you're moving your body. So I feel like this is going to be more of almost like a connect way of finding your body and putting it into the game with you. At the same time, it's going to cause a little bit of complication for things that are supposed to be seated games like driving simulators and things like that. Maybe they just turn the full body tracking off at that point. But I feel like just having a one-to-one representation of whatever body you're seeing in VR is going to be a big deal. If you are let's say you're playing a boxing game, you might not want to look down and see your scrawny little self standing up against this huge buff dude that is about to pummel you in VR. You might want to have that jacked body that's kind of brought in to make you feel a little bit better about your situation. but at the same time, I think the main thing is first tracking the skeletal system and getting your body movements right and getting all the coding for that right. Then after that, the natural progression of technology will have higher resolution cameras, better digital zoom, things like that. Then we'll be able to take that next level and kind of, be able to take the shirt color you're wearing or the tattoo or the mole that you have or whatever, and then bring that in as well. If they attempt to do that stuff too early, it could go wrong and kind of and not work as well, and it might kind of sour the taste for future things. But yeah, I really think this camera is mostly for full body tracking.
Yeah, well, one other angle I could hit you on is like since I mean I rarely get somebody on here that actually will entertain me with my full body tracking dream. So since you're here and you actually have somewhat of an interest in it, why don't we run with this for a second? So what I'm wondering is, though, do you think an external camera that's doing a Kinect-like thing would be enough to do it right? Because what I kind of think you need... So here's the thing. You got a VR headset on your head. In fact, let me grab one of my headsets. One sec.
Sure. Hey everyone in chat, by the way. Sorry that I can't, that I'm not good at reading the chat and responding in real time. I just suck at that, but I'll get better at it.
Okay, so here's a VR headset, right? This is an Oculus Rift, standard Oculus Rift, right? And so you have it on your head, and like it comes out, it extends out from your head a little bit, and I feel like there could be like a camera here and a camera here that is angled so that you've got this headset on and it's like looking down this way. You know what I mean?
hmm
It's like
and they
looking.
have cameras on there. According to the patents, they do have cameras on there that point down, and the cameras on the bottom of the headset, from what I've seen, are there to specifically track your facial muscles and facial expressions, and your mouth and your cheekbones, and your jawline and all of that stuff. And then inside, there's the cameras around the eyes, which are going to do the eye tracking, right? And
Well,
then,
these are
but
patents. We don't know for
they're
sure.
patents.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
patents. But I really and truly feel like if anyone can pull all this stuff off, it's going to be Sony, because they have the capital to do it. They have the distribution chains to do it. They have the relationships with all these companies to make this stuff happen. And they can take more of a loss than any other company to do this, while they bring the cost of manufacturing this stuff down. So I really think this is why I think Sony's going to walk out and drop the mic. I think they're going to come out with a 60 gigahertz wireless solution. You're not going to have the PSVR wires that we have right now. I think it's going to be a direct line of sight to the PlayStation processing box. And the camera will look for full body tracking. The cameras on the bottom of the headset will track your face, and the ones inside the headset will track your eyes. Now, I think there is a technical limitation with right now with how many cameras you can have in a headset and all the different things that they're looking at, because there has to be some kind of processing in the headset, right? And that's why companies like Qualcomm are making chips to support more cameras. But even the XR2 only supports 7 cameras, right? And you think you got to have 2 for your eyes, at least 2, if not 4, for your actual tracking, your room tracking and your hand tracking, right? Which leaves us, that brings us to 6. So we're going to run out of cameras here. And I feel like they're going to have to get crafty on how they track all of these things in our environment, how they track our bodies and our face and our eyes and our hands and our fingers. So I just feel like it's more of how are they gonna, are they gonna, they have to come to a balance here of cost versus tech,
Yeah.
and what the tech can actually do. How many cameras in the headset are going to be able to process all of these different parts of your body that are moving. So it's an interesting technical problem, and I'm very interested to see if Sony is really attempting to solve some of this.
Yeah, Greg's VR in chat has a number of comments where he's basically saying, look, you guys are in La La Land with your full body track. So let me read a few of Greg's VR comments. So he says, most likely the camera will have an IR blaster to aid the inside out tracking in low indifferent light, which actually that's a clever idea.
It's a
Because
really good idea.
you can buy these like people wonder like, oh, I would love to use a Rift S, but like I play in the dark, man. And so you go to Amazon, you get these things and it like completely illuminates the room in this like light that you don't even see. So like if they built that into the camera, that would be pretty cool. But then you're also putting the onus on the player, the user, to like, oh, I got to get my camera, I got to position it so that I'm in the center of the front. You know what I mean? Like these people got to like set their camera up the right way.
True. But I mean, your typical, like what you say, Joe and Sally Walmart, they're going to put the camera either below the TV or right on top of the TV. I feel like there's very little room for screwing up in that department. You know what I mean? And most
But then
people
if
try
the
to face their
TV,
TV.
but if the TV is close to the equation,
Yeah.
what typically happens?
Sure.
Smashy,
Yeah,
smashy.
and I feel you on that, because when I bust out my PSVR when there's exclusives that I want to play. And the way that goes for me is it's half me enjoying those exclusives and half me fighting the tracking the entire time. And that is because of my situation and the way I have my room set up, and I have reflective surfaces and picture frames everywhere, and it messes with the tracking, and I understand that. But I feel like that is more of an issue for your normal Joe and Sally Walmart than the other stuff, because the tracking, like when you lose tracking because there's something reflective in your room, that to me is a big deal. A lot of people have pictures hanging up. A lot of people have mirrors. A lot of people have shiny things places, and that's just a normal thing. But if you're able to track the headset inside out and have the extra camera that is either tracking your body or looking for the controller when it's occluded from the vision of the headset's cameras, I think that's a win-win situation. And I think the camera placement, just like on the PlayStation 4 and the PSVR 2, they show you the little animated things. Put your camera here, put your camera there, And I don't think the cone of vision is going to be as big of a deal on this, because I think if you break body tracking, and your body just goes normal in VR, I don't think that's as bad as your hands disappearing or flying away, or just all the crazy stuff that happens and all the drift that happens with the tracking on the PlayStation right now.
Yeah, Greg's VR, an additional comment, says body tracking is low on the list of VR priorities, in my opinion. But that's where I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's low. Like, I don't know if it should be low on the list of your priorities, because, I mean, that's something that we'd have to ask Michael Abrash or something. I imagine if you went to Facebook Reality, like if I was in charge of Facebook Reality Labs, if I was Zuck himself, what I would do is I would say, look, I want you to build one headset. I don't give a damn how much it costs to do it, but I want 220 degrees field of view. It's a prototype. I want 220 degrees field of view because I want to see how much does that matter. Okay, now we want this other room. We want a headset. I want freaking flawless millimeter precision body tracking. So go ahead, put on a full effing bodysuit that is tracked every little millimeter, because basically what they should be doing. And same thing with like tracking your facial muscles. Okay, now this headset's gonna be designed 100% about tracking every little bit of your facial muscles, your little face twitches or any little thing like that, the way your eyes are moving and all of that. Because what I would wanna do if I was head of Facebook Reality Labs is I would like to somehow measure immersion, which now that's hard to measure, right? But you can measure somebody's heart rate and you can measure their blood pressure, and you might be able to figure out that when people are more immersed, something happens to some of their vitals that could signify, oh, this person's in full-blown immersion. They've forgotten where the F they are. They really believe they're in a different place. And I think we could say, okay, well, 220 degree field of view. What does that do for immersion? What is your full body being like perfectly tracked? What does that do for immersion? What does it do for like the multiplayer experiences when you're seeing somebody's face and lip? Because basically what you'd want to determine is how important is any of this shit? Because they might find out, you know what? We found out that when you put your full body in a game, it's not that big of a deal. It increases the immersion like 5%. It's not, but we found out that when your face muscles are perfect,
Well, see, here's the thing though. I don't think you can track that immersion without having some really good developers make really good experiences for that, right? Because, there's a lot of things that you'd be like, well, why would they waste their money on that until the developer implements it well into a game, and then you're like, oh, now we get it. We've seen with finger tracking that it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference with anything, besides the ability to flip people off in game, right? Like what do we really use finger tracking for at this time, right? So, for me, I think the most important thing is going to be tracking your facial muscles, because one of the ways that we communicate the most is by facial expressions. The little subtleties of raising an eyebrow or the way you kind of move your mouth, and that stuff is going to come through with facial tracking. Now the next step to that is we talk with our hands, and we kind of gesture things, and you can tell how someone's feeling or what the message they're trying to convey by how their body's moving as well. So I think that's the next thing down. But if no one is ready to implement that stuff, then it doesn't matter, right? So I think Sony has what it takes to do all this stuff. The question is, will they get developers to to actually put in the extra time to do this? Are they gonna supply an SDK that makes this stuff so easy that all they do is plug in a line of code and they're good to go, and Sony's code handles the rest, right? So it really depends on how developers utilize this technology. I mean, like I was saying, in a driving game, is not going to matter really if your body's tracked, because you're sitting there. Your hands are tracked when you're using the wheel, so it doesn't really matter. So, and obviously in that case, why would you need full body tracking? But in something like VR chat, that's huge. That's absolutely huge to be able to do full body tracking, right? So the experience warrants the technology to a point.
Well, what would be nice in full body tracking? This game right here, Richie's Plank Experience. How can you... No, but seriously, how can you really be that fearful of this game when you don't see your effing feet? You know what I mean?
Agree.
Like this person is... But that's inaccurate. They're like, okay, yeah, she's really in the VR game, but that's not accurate. This is not actually... No, you're not seeing... Sorry, you're not seeing your foot like that. If you really saw your foot like that, it would be a game changer. But so I don't know. I disagree with Greg's VR that body tracking it. Like, I think a lot of people, I think that's a lot of people's viewpoint on it, but I don't think they're thinking of all the ramifications of like your feet. Like, we can't have a legit soccer game. How can we have a legit soccer game? You can't track your effing feet. I mean, I know they've got these trackers that you can get. And how crazy is it on that note that it's been years, we have these trackers, right? They've never gotten any smaller, like just a lot
or
of
cheaper.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing what Sony's trying to do, I think, right? Valve has a solution where you can buy, multiple trackers. You need one for each hand, one for each foot, one for your waist. That's expensive, right? If you have one camera, like right now I have an Xbox One Connect camera over by my VR stuff. So if I do things like VR chat, I can use that to provide full body tracking. That is way cheaper. It doesn't work quite as well, but man, is it a lot cheaper and a lot more practical, right? Than every time I hop into VR, having to strap things to every extremity of my body. What a pain in the ass. I have things like I have the Behaptics vest, I have the Behaptics facial interface, and I love them, and I love wearing them, and I love using them, and it adds so much to the games that support them. But at the same time, every piece that I have to put on takes longer to get into VR. It cuts down the amount of time that I have to play. And then if something happens during the game that needs my attention, I got to pull all this shit off. I got to go, it's huge. It's a friction thing, right? And having a camera that's able to track your body reduces the friction incredibly from things like Vive trackers, suits that you wear, things like that. So I think they're going in the right direction for mass adoption, although it might not be the best technical way to accomplish things. I think price-wise and friction-wise, the way that they've put this stuff together in their patents, it makes sense to me.
Okay, one idea I might have mentioned this idea in a past episode before, but I've always had this dream. It's kind of related to body tracking. It's kind of related to putting your real self into the games. Is like, what if now the problem is you have to go somewhere to do this. Like, you have to go to, like, it would require like Microsoft being into VR or Apple or something, because you'd have to go to the local Microsoft store or the Apple store, and they would have like a $30,000 machine there. Like, there might only be one in your city, you know what I mean? But like, where I'm going with this, right?
Yes,
you go into a machine. Okay, stand like this, zzz, and it basically gives you the professional where you're being filmed by a billion effing cameras simultaneously, and it's covering every inch of your freaking body. Perfect. Like, so every little hair and scar and nick and mole or whatever is perfectly captured. And they would know your exact height. They know exactly the distance from your elbow to the wrist bone and everything. And so if they have all these calculations, like, it could be built into your avatar. So when you sign in, bam, it knows you. It knows exactly how you look from every effing angle. It knows exactly your body shape and how tall you are, and it has all this information. Now, even if it didn't have like advanced body tracking sensors and stuff, couldn't it take some of the basic information, like we know exactly where your head is, we know exactly where your hands are, and if we have a perfect scan of your human body and we have your skeletal information already built in, can't we just put your head on where your head would be, put your hands on where your hands would be, and then now the inverse kinematic model? Because think about it, there's people that like their elbow to their wrist bone is like 3 inches longer than your elbow. You know what I mean? And that's where when we try to do inverse kinematics and you're moving your elbow, you're like, my elbow, this is way off. This isn't accurate at all. But I think if we had like realistic measurements, maybe it would be accurate. And then,
so I know where you're going here, and I feel like, yeah, you could totally, like walking into a place in the mall that has like the Facebook advanced avatar setup camera system, right? You walk in, you get scanned, you walk home with a thumb drive, you get your avatar in there. But here's the thing. So I went to CES 2020 in January, maybe the last expo that will ever be, who knows. But I met up with this company that took a regular iPad 3rd generation, wasn't even like a newer iPad, and then just walked around me. And they captured, within 10 seconds, they captured my exact facial structure. They captured every mole and dot and every skin imperfection. They captured my hair and were able to animate it. And it looked so good. And that was just with an iPad. So I feel like the days of needing advanced stuff like that, I feel like that's only for research and development labs. I feel like you can do very similar things with the technology that we have today. And I think that Sony could very easily create an app that you could walk around a person and get their full scan and put it into your PlayStation. I think they could build that into the PS5 app. And interestingly enough, Sony had an article that came out, maybe a year and a half ago, that they were developing this app already, right? Where you could scan your entire body. And now, I think that is way more of an option than having to actually get retail space and bring in all this really expensive equipment. Plus, if you can't get someone to put something on to play VR, you're not going to get them to leave and go somewhere to a retail space, wait in line, do all this stuff.
Wait a minute, though. One aspect of that, though, is multiplayer, like Rec Room and stuff. If everybody has effing real avatars walking around and you're the one dude with a freaking cartoon avatar, that is an incentive like a mofo to get your ass to the store.
It is. But with us having really high definition cameras in our pockets, and with them, having a high definition camera with the PlayStation 5, I feel like they're going to be able to scan you. I think it's going to be...
I know they'll be able to scan you. My one concern with your scenario that you brought up there is, will they know, like, you can get a quickie scan of somebody, almost like an NBA 2K, put your face in the game kind of a thing. But will that have the millimeter accuracy? Will they know exactly the speaking of the distance of your elbow and your wrist bone, right? Are you telling me that a VR game, like there should be some freaking indie developers out there that would have the options, go into the options menu, take a freaking measuring tape, measure your elbow to your wrist bone, enter that, put it into the inverse kinematic options menu, and now you've got way more accurate. I think we could take a couple of measurements. Okay, measure from your shoulder to where your elbow, like something that would take a matter of 4 minutes.
But the cameras like the Kinect style cameras that identify and follow your skeletal structure do measure that stuff, and they do have that information. So I feel like if you got a scan of yourself, using like a PlayStation app, with your phone, and someone just walks around you, then the camera doing the full body tracking that sees your skeletal structure, knows exactly how far it is from your elbow to your hand, it knows from your torso to your knee, and so on and so forth. It's doing those real-time calculations all the time, constantly.
Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem, Skeeva. The problem is people wear baggy shirts and stuff. They need to put you in a skin-tight bodysuit, so they can get your exact proportions locked in underneath.
And that stuff is coming, right? We went and played with the Tesla suit stuff, and at CES, and you actually had to get naked. And you had to get into this thing. It was an actual wetsuit, but inside the wetsuit material was all of the electrodes and all of the things that they were able to simulate wind and impact and be able to track your body 100% accurately. All of this stuff is definitely coming, and whether it gets implemented into consumer-based stuff or not, this is 100% on its way, and it's a lot more affordable than I thought it was going to be, even at the point it's at now. But at the same time, that stuff's really hard. People don't want to put that stuff on at home. People don't want to gear up every time. Like you say, you got to have the least amount of friction possible for technology to succeed. The more you ask someone to do, the harder it's going to be for that technology to take off.
Hey, Skeeva, you brought up something that made me think of this Amazon TV show Upload. Have you seen this show?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've seen every episode, but the final episode, I still need to see the final episode.
The last one
okay. It's like I'm saving it so that I still have something to look forward to, basically. But in this show, it's funny. There's a lot of VR. Like, it's not designed to be about VR, but there's a lot of parallels to VR that are in this world, right? In fact, so you have people that are living and people that are dead, and living people can have sex with a dead person, but they have to get this special, they have this suit that has all these little things all over it.
Little fingers on the inside.
And it's kind of funny though, because it's I wonder, and then all this in-app purchasing shit. Oh my God, how much of a nightmare.
So what's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is all these companies are going to work so hard on all this technology, and there's going to be all these peripherals and cameras and all this tech that does all this stuff, and then someone's going to nail the wireless brain interfacing, whether it be Valve
to
or
completely
whatever,
ruin it all.
Yeah, just throw it all away. At that point, you just throw it all away, right? Because once you have interface to the brain, you don't need a suit. You don't need a way to locomote. You don't need things like cyber shoes and whatever to feel like you're walking. You'll be able to experience all of this stuff within your mind. I guess it's going to convert out to the headset. So, eventually, and that might be 20 years down the road, but at the same time, there's a lot of really, really smart people working on this right now.
You know what I'm super curious about from what you're talking about here, the brain-computer interface, what is it? Tesla. What's the name for that? Neuralink. Okay, yeah, Neuralink, and the different companies that are working on this. Yeah, they're working on it. Like Gabe Newell said, you'd be surprised at how close we are to the FE matrix. It's not that far away. So the way I understand it is to take over your visual, what you're seeing in your brain. They can do that, but my question is, what is the transition? That's my question. What is the transition from me seeing what I'm seeing right now to then having that shit taken over? Because I think that the 5 seconds or the 3 milliseconds or whatever it is between those transitions, I don't know what's going to happen, man.
I'm sure you've been in a situation, right, where you've been in VR and your computer freezes and then the whole world sticks no matter where you move your head. Imagine that with brain interfacing, right? You totally, There's so many different things, good things and bad things that are going to come out of this, and a lot of the good things will be that we'll be taking people that have serious medical conditions and making them better. And that's always the number one priority, right? And then hopefully it trickles down to gaming and stuff like that, which eventually it will, because once they have good, no one's going to want to go in and have pieces of your skull drilled out and have wires put in. That's just, that's all, Gen 1.
I don't know.
You know, like, but once it's wireless, it's going to be a lot easier for someone to go, let me just try this for a minute. You can't try it for a minute, you
Oh,
know,
I
if someone's
see. Yeah,
pulling wires in
yeah.
their skull, you know what I mean? But if I were to come up to you and say, hey, check this out. I put this little thing on you, you turn it on, all of a sudden you're in this other world, you know. What was that Vipers episode, you know, of Black Mirror? Um, you know, man,
Do you think? Okay, wait. One question about that. So the
mm,
Vipers question, where they're like on this couch and they're like, their eyes are like rolled up in their heads or whatever, and they're just experiencing all this stuff, like that. Yeah, it sounds great if it really worked like that. But so when we dream, okay, like we'll have dreams where we're like running around, we're being chased by an effing monster in our dream, and we're just laying in the bed.
mhm.
We're not
But you
like,
feel yourself running,
yeah.
and you feel the impact on your feet, and you feel all these different things in your
True.
mind.
But what we don't know for sure that when we have a dream, are we really experiencing all those sensations, or is it our memory of having the dream? Like our memory when we wake
Yeah,
up of having the dream believes like, yeah, I was having a dream and I was running around, but really, like, what is really happening
yeah,
when we dream? We're not sure, because it could be little bits and pieces of things, and we like combine it into this like seamless thing, but it
yeah,
isn't really that. So I'm wondering,
absolutely.
can we really just sit in a chair and experience us being chased by a Rottweiler, but we're just sitting in a chair,
Yeah, well,
not
you know,
moving?
someday, I'm sure someday, you know, I feel like someday we will have indistinguishable simulations from reality. Someday, I mean, to me, it's almost a fact, right? I mean, just if you look at 40 years from Pong to Half-Life Alex, imagine another 40 years on that, imagine another 40 years on that, so on and so
Well,
forth,
yeah,
right? So,
I believe you're right when it comes to like external things bringing
yeah,
us
no,
into a
I
world.
think we're going to
But
go
no,
internal though,
okay,
too.
but if we're going
I
to go
think,
internal, the problem is we got to deal with the way our brain is set up to work. And
mhm.
our brain might not have been set up to be doing this type of shit.
This is true. This is true.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, I mean,
And we're going to find out here really soon, right? Because, like I said, there's a lot of people with a lot of money that are very smart that are working on this currently. You know, Gabe Newell and his son are both working on this stuff. You know, there's Elon Musk. Some of these people have unlimited funds, and they're going to push this really hard, and they're going to spend a lot of money. And I think coming up here, we're going to start to find out a lot of the limitations. You know, like Gabe was saying, it's really hard to make someone feel cold, because then you have to take over their nervous system, and you have to take over their um,
yeah,
what do
yeah.
you call it? Keeps you from getting sick, right? So you have to. There's all different kinds of your body that we're going to have to learn to interface with, and it's going to take a long time, and that's for sure. But we're heading in that direction right now, and I think once we get there, you know, all these peripherals are going to be at a goodwill, along with all the Nintendo Wii stuff that's out there.
Yeah, one of the things though is like when they first start doing all this, because like when Elon Musk was back on the Joe Rogan show, they kind of got into this a
Yep.
little bit, and he's like, and Joe Rogan was like, so humans aren't going to be talking to each other with words, and Elon's Musk like 5 years, but
Yeah.
what he doesn't understand is. Yeah, 5 years for the first initial test with the
Right.
first initial person that their brain was injured in a horrific car accident where they have no ability to do that anyway, so that they've been legally signed up to be able to try this experimental procedure, because it's going to have to start off extremely experimental, and they're only going to start there initially. It's going to be people with horrible debilitating brain injuries where this is only a net positive, where it can't be negative because
Right.
that part of them has been ruined anyway. So it's like, well, let's experiment and see if we can improve it for you. But like, imagine a blind person, like somebody that has been blind their entire life. They hook them up to Neuralink, and now they're seeing shit like you would know. Like maybe they're
I think
not.
we're going to see that.
Yeah.
We're going to see that, I think. And like you said, In fact, take anything that Elon says, take any time period he says, and extend it by at least 4 times that. Right? He's very, very aggressive with his timelines. He's very aggressive, and it shows throughout all his companies. But the thing is, when this guy says he's going to accomplish something, he always accomplishes it. It's just usually 4 times past the time he says it was going to happen. So I do think that the first people, are going to be the people that it's only going to be a net positive, because if they die, they didn't have the best quality of life to begin with. But at the same time, eventually, as that type of technology becomes commercialized, imagine if you really, someone else, imagine if you had one of these devices and I had one of these devices, and we were able to send messages to each other via our thoughts, right? You wouldn't have to talk. Now, that doesn't mean that as soon as that happens, everyone in the world is going to buy this thing for $1 billion. Of course not, right? So, but I think we're definitely going to get to a point where we'll be able to send communications back and forth to other people that have the, compatible devices.
Well, dude, once it really effing happens, think about it. Like email and texting, all you do is just think. Like, Skeeva, I need this doc, and it's just in your brain.
Yeah.
Like, or it'll be floating around. Do you, this little thing, message from Anthony? Do you want to have this thought just pop into your head?
And the first that we're going to see of that is augmented reality, right? Where we will finally become a two-handed species again, because right now one of our hands is always on our phone. Right. So it'll be really nice to have this stuff built into our glasses where we can actually see a message come up, be able to do whatever we're going to do to, interface with that message, and be able to use our hands. Right. I mean, people don't talk about how we've lost our hands. We always only have one hand because the other one's always texting or doing something on the phone or holding the phone or whatever the case may be. So the first wave we're going to get of this is augmented reality, I think. From there, as that moves up and on, we'll start to see more of the brain interfacing things as it's worked on and developed. So I think we're in for some super exciting times. I think me and you will probably see some of this brain interfacing stuff. Probably not mainstream, but before we die, I think we're going to see some serious technological advances here.
Yeah, you talked about augmented reality real quick there for a second, and I was just thinking, how Apple, there was this, the rumor of Apple Glass and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I never actually really covered that on any of my shows. I always wanted to cover that because I honestly think that rumor is complete and utter bullshit. I don't think there's any chance in hell they would name it Apple Glass. There's no effing chance.
That won't be the name.
So so then that whole rumor is that is a freaking completely made up rumor that a lot of people gave a lot of.
Maybe not, because I feel like it could definitely be a code name, right? I mean, it's Apple, it's Glass, right?
They would name their code name the exact name as a Google product.
I don't know. A lot of things here are pointing to the fact that Apple is definitely working on augmented reality, right? They have ARKit that's been going on their iPhones for a very long time. Their augmented reality and spatial computing software is pretty solid. You typically on Apple devices don't see things moving around in the space. They're typically anchored to where they should be. What I think they're doing is I think they're preparing for an AR launch. But the way I've always seen Apple is they won't step into the field until they have a product that they really feel is going to nail it. And so for me, what I think that product would be AR that can do black, right? Because that's the ultimate dream. AR that can black out the real world and become VR. And if anyone can come up with this, it's the only $1 trillion company, Apple. Right,
but couldn't they just do instead of actually creating black and projecting black, which is incredibly difficult?
Yeah.
Couldn't they just have an ink injection that just injects black ink into a thing and then it sucks it all out?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because you can buy stuff right now that you can buy a film right now that you can put on your car glass, you can put on your windows in your house, and you push a button and it turns tinted. or it goes gray. Like that's available right now for consumers to buy at any time.
But
So
what? How is it doing? How is it doing it? Like,
I don't know exactly technically how it works, but I've seen it work. Like I've been places where they have this stuff and I've pushed the button and I've watched the glass go not clear anymore. Like so, but I don't know exactly how it works. I'm sure you can Google it and there'll be some explanations. But I feel like something like that is what's gonna come out with these glasses. There'll be a VR mode where you can black out the glass and still have really nice, crisp, clear images. So I just feel like Apple doesn't fuck around. Like if they're going to get into this business, they're going to come in running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They're not going to come out with a half-assed product that someday is going to be, what they expect. They're going to come out with something really good from the get-go. And I feel like it's going to be AR with some VR capabilities.
the other thing, yeah.
Pure speculation.
The other thing about Apple too, though, is like they're almost never the first ones.
Right.
They're almost never the first ones to come out with something, and so it just seems so incredibly hard for me to believe like we don't have a single AR product that is even close to being like ready for mainstream consumers. Like the AR era has not begun. It's begun for developers. It hasn't begun for consumers. Like we don't have the Magic Leap 1, HoloLens 1, HoloLens 2, those do not count because they are not under $1,000. So you can't even consider them for like actual consumers. So
but what about the iPhone? Like do you really feel like the Palm Pilot and shit like that was smartphones before Apple came out with it? Like I feel like Apple sees something and they go, "Oh, wait a second. We see the vision of that product. We see the future of that product. You guys aren't doing it right. We're going to hop into this and we're going to show you how to really do it." You know what I mean? Like when they came out with the iPhone, it was revolutionary. Like there were plenty of other smartphone type devices, but they were garbage. The processors were terrible. The touchscreen interfaces were crappy. I mean, they were pretty bad, man. I had a lot of this stuff. I had different Palms. I had different different solutions before the iPhone came out, and really, I think they see a cool technology and they step up to the plate. And if they feel like they can hit a home run, they might enter the field. And I think the first thing is going to be this AR/VR maybe reality thing that they got going on, because seriously, their AR developer stuff for the iPhone is phenomenal. It's really, really good. So if you can get that type of AR into glasses, I mean, right there, it's already a home run. They have the back-end software where it needs to be. And I think that's a very, very big piece to this whole puzzle. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, one thing I was going to mention real quick. We're almost done here, by the way, guys. But I've always wondered, like with VR headsets, you know how we have the problem with sunlight with VR headsets? Like if direct sunlight hit this thing, it's freaking toast, right? I've always thought, couldn't there be like a little button that you hit and it just zoop, zoop, like these little covers just, but the problem is they have to retract, cool. They have to retract up into something and then they slide back out. You know what I mean? So for that's AR goggles, where does it retract, to make the black is what I mean.
So that's the thing, right? So if you were to take a Quest and you were to put expensive cameras that we have in our phones in that Quest, you'd be able to go outside and you'd probably be able to play VR, right? And also assuming that they get away from IR, which gets kind of drowned out by the sun, right? I mean, that's the main thing is sunlight hits the infrared and the cameras can't track it, but they're using very low quality
She's in the backyard right now.
Yeah, exactly. So they have to, there's always a balance between price and technology, right? To get something like we have with the Quest, they could have made it $2,000 and they could have made it perfectly trackable outside and they could have done all these things, but it's not, you just don't bring it to consumers that way. You just can't expect consumers to mass adopt a product that's so expensive. So as all of these cameras get cheaper and as all of these phone manufacturers come out and they're producing billions of these cameras, right? This tech is getting cheaper. And I feel like Apple's going to be able to put really good cameras in there that will be able to run during the day as well as at night, without problems without major problems of the sun screwing up the tracking.
The goddamn sun. We got to do something about this goddamn sun. It's funny. So yesterday I was using my Quest for the first time in a long time. And I was like, I had to go to get something or do something, right? And I did. I just left the Quest on, because it does have these cameras on there. And you walk out of your play space, and then it gives you the black and white, weird little vision. But you could basically walk around and kind of see things. And I was thinking to myself, I actually thought of this yesterday. I was like, man, it is going to be nice when this shit is crystal clear color. And it is high resolution as hell.
Have you tried it on your Index?
No, I haven't.
So the pass-through on the Index is great because it is full color and it's higher res than the Quest, way higher resolution than the Quest. But it's still obviously a digital image. But it's really cool because you do get way more of that sense of AR. Just being able to like double-click really quick your system button on the Index, and all of a sudden the real world passes through in color, and it's great. I feel like that's something that every VR headset needs to have going forward, so you can kind of break into the real world and then come back into the VR world as you need, because just because you're in VR doesn't mean real life isn't going on around you.
Yeah.
But definitely try the pass-through on the Index because it works really, really good.
Absolutely. Gaming Science Teacher in chat says, in real, you could argue, saying, because I've seen that the AR thing hasn't really started yet. And yeah, in real might be the first, but it still hasn't started yet, because I can't go to Best Buy and buy it in real. I can't order it online and have it shipped this Tuesday. It's still not there yet. So the AR hasn't even started yet. Like, we need to remember that. VR has started.
You can pull your phone out, though, and you can do AR stuff with your phone.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There's all kinds of little stickers you can bring on in your phone, with your camera. You can have stormtroopers standing there. You can play
I haven't done
games
any
on
of
a tabletop. And I have, and it works really good. And that's why I have this faith that Apple is going to come out and probably knock it out of the park and do things that are kind of unexpected because of the technology we've seen thus far. That makes sense.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've been going for a couple of hours now, so I guess we can kind of wind things down here. Let me grab my little VR365 logo and throw it on the screen to signal the fact that we are about to chill. We're about to take a little bit of break. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much going to go ahead and wrap it up for this episode of VR365. Thank you so much for Skeeva joining me on this episode. We thought we were going to be talking about Area 51, man. E.T., bro. Close Encounters, man. Travis Walton. We thought we were going to be getting knee deep in all of the UFO alien talk, but that is going to be held over for basically about a week or so. We'll have more details. I can tell you on the Thursday episode of VR365 that is on YouTube, I'll probably have a final showtime. Dark Frequencies, baby. It's coming to a theater near you. So go ahead. You can go ahead and subscribe to the channel now if you'd like. We will have shows coming up. We're excited about it. We're hyped for it. And we think it's going to be really, really intriguing and fascinating. And you know what it's going to be really good for? People that have to be in like a cubicle or something at work and they can listen to podcasts. That's where this stuff is really good for that. So we might have to make like a podcast version and get it on like iTunes or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, we can come up with all that stuff for sure. Thank you, Anthony, for having me on the show. It's I've been watching VR365 since VR Game Rankings and since the very beginning, man. I think you had less than 100 shows when I first started watching this, and this has always been my favorite VR show. So thank you for having me. It's been a serious honor to be here and to hang out with all you guys. And if you guys want to find me on Between Realities, go ahead and hop over there and subscribe. We talk about as well some other VR stuff and kind of the philosophical direction of the whole thing as well. So hop over there and find me, and it was super awesome hanging out with you guys today.
Yeah, you guys have some wonderful interviews over there. Like, speaking of being in a cubicle at work, some great great shows for that, right? And I would have had
Yeah.
your Between Realities logo on here had I known that we were going to actually do all
Oh, yeah.
this. But yeah,
No
so
worries.
but yeah, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode of VR365. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate everybody in chat and everything. And I'll be back on Thursday on YouTube, regular VR365 show this Thursday on YouTube. So, and you know the cool thing about that show, one thing we didn't mention at all in this entire episode is like the Upload VR summer showcase. You know, we're going to get all kinds of release dates. There's probably going to be some new games we've never seen before that are going to, you know, be announced, and new trailers and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So lots of information to go through on next Thursday's episode. So be sure to tune into that. All right, Skeeva, thanks so much for joining me. Everybody have a good one. Take it easy. Later.